Thank you very much, James, and thank you, Edith. Um, Distinguished delegates, friends, ladies and gentlemen, I'll take only a few moments, maybe the next few slides, to take you through some of the achievements of the Phase 1 of the Claim Dev Africa program. You will recognize that in the structure that my colleague James Mrombezi has explained, there was on one hand the focus on supporting policy frameworks with evidence-based information, analysis, feeding into decision-making. But on the other side, as he had indicated, there was the gap in infrastructure to support the generation of that information. So the way the Phase 1 was implemented in order to meet this data plus capacity gap was that the Africa Union Commission with the Climate and Desertification Unit and the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa with the Africa Climate Policy Center were responsible for taking the upstream use of the information that was available from the downstream investments that were being made in infrastructure. So we had a number of achievements in terms of strengthening institutions and providing investments in climate information services. One of the achievements is the Climate Change and Development in Africa Conference, and we have just last week held the 11th conference under this framework. It's a very robust conference that brings together climate change practitioners, researchers, government and policy practitioners in order to dialogue on the contemporary matters that are affecting the implementation of climate change programs in Africa, and also to build the capacity of these practitioners to be able to engage not just nationally within the countries, but also to generate that awareness and policy positions that would inform also international negotiations. There was also a robust climate research for development program that yielded a number of outcomes. And I was happy because the information that came out of the fellowships that were generated under the CR4D program fed into the IPCC assessments. There was the expansion of the number of African scientists who participated in that, and I was very pleased to hear during the CCDA last week when we had the Climate Science Policy Forum that the participation of African scientists has increased from 3% to 8%. So I would like to believe that CR4D was instrumental in contributing to that process. Yes, let's give our African scientists a round of applause. Again, the area of technical support to countries, I think this one, in fact, is one of the areas where we spent most of the resources. I'm happy to report that we did really significant investments on the side of, so let me talk about two. So one, we had the regional focus where we supported the regional climate centers. Africa has 4 regional climate centers: the SADC Climate Center, which is based in Gaborone in Southern Africa, the IGAD Climate Predictions and Application Center, which is based here in Nairobi, the ECAS Climate Prediction Center, which is based in Douala in Cameroon, and the Agrimet Center, which is for the Sahel region, which is based in Niger, in Niamey. For the ICPAC Center here in Nairobi, we actually contributed to that together with other support from the African Development Bank through our normal, what we call net income allocations. We added resources to the grants that we received under this program, and we actually built a new regional center for ICPAC here in Nairobi, full with facilities to host scientists from the region, to generate products for the 10 countries that they serve here in the region. And we are very pleased that in 2021, the then President of the Republic of Kenya, President Uhuru Kenyatta, graced the occasion to open that center, and that center is operational. It's a very state-of-the-art facility together with solar panel powered equipment, and you are welcome to visit that center here in Nairobi. And our colleagues, Dr. Gulei Datan, if he's here today, and others, Linda Ogalo, would be pleased to share with you some of the investments that the bank and ClimDev partners actually put in that center. We've also done something similar for the Central Africa region in Douala. We have actually built a new center for them, and we're in the process of equipping that center and also supporting them with the technical capacity to run the center. At the moment, the installations are going, the Meteor Factory, the Puma stations, the high-performance computers, and my colleague Diodone Gudu is here, who is continuing to work with the task managers there to ensure that center is up and running. The Agrimet Seal Center, together with ACMAD, they were involved in the installation of what we call regional retransmission stations, which are essentially ground-based stations which receive satellite data. And these 4 ground-based stations which receive satellite data are the first to give complete satellite reception coverage for Africa. So we have one station that's located at the Space Center at Sansa in South Africa. We have an additional one that's located at Agios in Gabon. We have one at the Agrimet Center in the Sahel and one here at ICPAC. And those 4 centers are providing complete coverage for Africa. It will be the first time that we can access data packages from these low polar orbiting EUMET satellites that provides us with the capability now to do modeling for numerical weather prediction. We hope we can bring the resolution of the data down up to 2 to 3 square kilometers resolution, and those can then feed into the numerical weather models to do severe weather prediction for the region. And especially the region we are in is prone to drought and is also prone to the attack by the tropical cyclone in the southern Indian Ocean. So that was really a significant approach to the outcomes from the regional approach. With the, thank you. With the countries, we worked with, through the regional approach, we were able to reach 25 countries with what we call the DRR portals and a number of other investments in computer clusters to assist them in building their modeling capability, but also through direct support with technical assistance, we reached also an additional 17 countries, and we installed 170 automatic weather stations in 17 countries, which is really complementing the WMO effort of making sure that we have coverage of 2,000 stations for Africa, which will give us a minimum operational capacity according to the WMO standards and recommendation. And I'm very glad my colleague Ernest Afesimama is here, who we have also just launched with the State of Africa Climate Report. And thank you very much, WMO, for that technical support. Let's give them a round of applause. Finally, let me say that also this support was very instrumental in providing collaborations and partnerships, not just within the countries, but also at the global level during the negotiations. The one thing that I would like to mention is that the ClimDev program really brought this convening power that we hadn't had before, and which was part of the vision of the African heads of state when they initially promulgated the program. So I will just say, I will not go through the specific slides for the achievements, but just to highlight some of those areas, and we can continue to interact in the specific areas, and I can continue to give you more details later. So thank you very much. I will invite my colleague James to come and take us through the rationale to answer the question, why from phase 1 to phase 2? Please, James.
Yeah, thank you very much, James. There's a reason why it's James and James are presenting this. Yeah, but thanks, James. the way, in fact, the way many processes of reflection and learning in phase one. Reflection regarding how the process, the coordination of the implementation of a program by 3 separate institutions was working. Reflection regarding how the program was interacting with member states and other beneficiaries that have been identified by James, but also reflections regarding the continued relevance of the program itself. And in this process, we learned quite many lessons, which led us to think or rethink the program going into the second phase. The first was, of course, there were the normal institutional challenges regarding recruitment, but also regarding alignment of implementation activities between 3 different institutions located geographically in 3 different areas. And I think before the COVID era, the use of remote interactions through, for instance, virtual meetings and so on was not that popular, right? So you actually had very slow coordination, but you also had different challenges in terms particularly of meeting at the highest levels of the 3 collaborating institutions. Delays in launching part of the ClimDev program, as well as the institutional capacity to absorb the support from the program in different countries. Next slide, please. In terms of key operational challenges, phase 1 demonstrated that supporting the generation and packaging of climate information alone was not sufficient to stimulate demand and uptake in policy and planning processes. This is to say that there continued to be a gap between the generation and existence of climate information and the willingness to take this information up and apply it in policy making and other processes as well. So the demand for climate information was actually slower than what had been anticipated in the phase 1 theory of change. And so the scope of the program was strategically reoriented towards ensuring the enabling environment for the uptake of climate information and services. So even as the program was being implemented, there were responses to some of the challenges that were being encountered. Next slide, please. So these experiences informed the design, the transition from phase 1 to phase 2. So as we have heard, phase 1 made considerable achievements in the first phase and gained confidence of our countries, RECs and other stakeholders as partners or as the partner of choice for climate information and services, as well as for policy advocacy around mainstreaming climate change into development planning. And also, ClimDev phase 1 has developed into a very high profile and ambitious program in the evolving landscape of providing climate information and services in Africa and supporting a range of innovative climate strategies. And it also increased the confidence of the African engagement in global climate governance frameworks. To this, I might add that there's always a need to put a human face to some of these developments. So some of the original designers of ClimDev phase 1 have also moved into those global policy making positions. So if I may, for instance, point out Professor Tony Nyong was involved in the design of phase 1. He is now a director at the African Development Bank. So I think we attribute that to phase 1. We have Dr. Joseph Insiful sitting next to him, who was one of the early climate scientists of ClimDev phase 1, and now is the lead scientist at the Green Climate Fund. We also had other scientists in ClimDev phase 1, like His Excellency Seleshi Bekele, who became the Minister of Energy and Irrigation Water in the government of Ethiopia, and now is Ambassador of Ethiopia to the United Nations. We also have our colleague Dr. Johnson Kem, who also came through ClimDev phase 1 and is now coordinating a UNDP climate change program in in South Sudan. Excuse me, Johnson. We could point to many other colleagues who have gone through the program we are now participating in this global governance framework. And of course, James and myself are still doing the legwork of our ClimDev. I just thought I would mention that so that we could actually associate the program with some of the people who started it. But of course, as I said, we also had challenges regarding the effectiveness of program management, particularly in terms of coordination between the institutions. And this has actually improved considerably, but the design of phase 2 also takes into consideration further improvements in coordination. Next slide, please. So the success of that program also created major needs which have to be addressed as the program goes forward. The first is the need to broaden engagement with the African decision-making landscape. The African decision-making landscape has changed in several ways that we are going to talk to shortly. But also the need to capitalize on the strategic and operational opportunities that were provided by ClimDev Phase 1. And thirdly, the need to harness the comparative advantages of emerging initiatives providing climate information services in Africa. And there are lots of initiatives that have developed or that have collaborated with ClimDev Phase 1 in that regard.